getting their audio figured out
Right.
in terms of who you can hear and who you can't hear. Well, Neil, thanks so much for coming in. I'm excited to get your perspective and hear more about what you're doing. It was awesome to see you come in kind of cold and just be interested in giving us a broadcast. More and more folks are doing that, and that's we definitely love to see that.
Yeah, well,
Do you want
I
to?
was super excited to see your community. So I don't know how I stumbled on it. I must have been searching mixed reality or something, and I didn't find there were a lot of forums to meet up with developers and share.
Yeah.
So I was excited to see what you're doing.
No, that's awesome. And I guess to give you a bit more background, since we haven't chatted about it, Spatial Ape is basically, it's exactly what you think it is, right? It's a place for people like you, people that are working on projects in VR to come together, network, and show off what they're working on. And there really isn't that many spaces to do it. Like I think early in VR, maybe 2015, 2016, people started to develop little communities like this, but they
Sure.
didn't really survive the winter that followed. And now we're in a time when I think VR is really resurging, and there's enough activity where startups can kind of return to the forefront. And so that's what we're trying to, encourage here, which has been really exciting in the last few weeks. Um, you want to just start off by giving us the elevator pitch of who you are and what you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Neil. My company is called Vrotors. And we have built a platform for flying real drones through VR. And those drones are remote. So, for example, you're at home and you're in your Quest, and you can fly a drone which is anywhere in the world. And in particular, we fly a lot of drones in Southern California. We have a number of applications for the platform. We actually started flying in a test phase with Twitch streamers last December. So it's been about a year. And we have courses which are 5 to 10 acres in size. So, it's in the real world, they're real drones. And we utilize sort of an augmented reality overlay to create the course. So there are rings and objects in that 5 to 10 acre course. And it's been kind of really fun to set up the uh, all this kind of terminology for these courses that the drones go through. And the our best, just to mention, our best fastest racer lives in London. So he's flying drones
Wow.
in Southern California. Our second best is in Vancouver. So it really brings to for us the vision of VR, at least part of our vision, about being able to be immersed in a remote location. In this case, through robotics, and robotics in this case being drones. And so when we have these races, the pilot, there's a co-pilot in a 3D cockpit, and the audience really joins in. If you're in VR, you actually ride behind them. So imagine that the pilot and co-pilot are sitting in front of you. You're in the seat right behind them between as they're racing. And the Twitch audience is actually repairing shields because during the race, there are things shooting at you and you're shooting at them as well.
Huh.
But I went into a little bit too much detail. The applications that we have for this piloting platform in VR are drone racing. We do some virtual tourism. So you explore around, you actually use a drone to explore around that area. And then we have some enterprise applications. And so we're starting to work with telecommunication companies for cell tower inspection and construction companies for remote construction site kinds of inspections and reviews.
Wow, that's really interesting. You definitely have one of the most unique ventures of anyone we talk to. It's not your standard VR game. That's really cool. When I was in college, one of my odd jobs that I had in my career was flying drones for companies. So this was
Yeah.
like right when the DJI kind of started coming out with their consumer models, and the demand for this aerial photography was growing, and so I just kind of, as more of a fun thing at first than anything, decided to start flying these drones and taking pictures for these folks, and I had a ton of fun doing it. And so I was really interested to hear more about your angle on this. So I'm looking at your website, and it
Uh-huh.
mentions an enterprise platform, and already I've heard you talk about two or three different things you can do with this platform. How have you chosen your focus?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question, and I wonder if we have that focus. But let me maybe if I tell you a short history,
Please.
it'll show how we got to where we are today and why we're involved in these different things.
Great.
So we're actually out of the video gaming space. I was originally before starting this company, I was a CTO at Skybound, the creator of The Walking Dead, and working with their video games, comic books, e-commerce platforms, that stuff. And that's when Oculus came out on Kickstarter,
Oh, sorry.
and that's how I got into VR. And so when we first started flying drones, the first thing we thought is, you know, drones, of course, they say, "Oh, we want to race them." So that's really how we started out with in drone racing. And my partner in this venture is John Platten, who's was a creative director at Niantic. So he
Oh,
brought that
cool.
whole mixed reality um, side to the experience, which really
Yeah.
was important, right? To create interactivity and something more than just looking out, from the camera. So that's how we got into racing. Virtual tourism was a natural extension of what to do with the drone and people who were riding along. And then we got involved with a Techstars program in Los Angeles, the Business Accelerator. It's actually their space accelerator, so they saw the future of robotics in space. Um, and that's how we started looking at some of the enterprise applications and got involved with, the inspection kinds of projects. And we are proposing using the similar VR-based system in space as well.
And so has your pursuit of those more enterprisey projects, has that been financially driven? What's your funding status? How have you guys gone
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So, for the most part, we really just bootstrap out of love of flying. So,
Awesome.
when, like you mentioned, the DJI drones, and before that were the Parrot drones, when those came out, looking up in the sky with joysticks was not the greatest flying experience. And so,
Mm.
putting that into VR with a real 3D cockpit, that's where the joy of flying finally came. That was when we experienced the magic, and especially when we were able to start taking people up on rides. And so, as much as I'd love to say I love cell tower inspection, the real joy is that when we can take these companies, representatives from these companies, on a remote drone flight together, and that experience of takeoff is magical, and that's still where all the joy of what we do comes from. And we still do some drone racing on the side.
Hmm.
That's really interesting. I can't imagine that experience of being an executive, you know, looking over your land or your cell tower, your infrastructure, or whatever it is you're doing. That would be pretty incredible, especially if you're not someone who's super familiar with VR. I mean, that's going to probably a breathtaking experience for folks.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely. And when we first came out, we'd actually have to ship a VR, an Oculus Go, out to anybody who wanted to try it. That's,
mhm.
UPS definitely got some money. But we have since also released the platform on PC, Mac, and you can also fly on your mobile device. So you can be in any of those and join in the flight. But VR is the immersive one, of course. And if you want to ride along, you have to be in VR.
What is the platform called?
It's called V Rotors.
Oh,
V
V
Rotors.
rotors. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're just releasing on SideQuest later today.
Oh, awesome.
so so that's oh, congratulations today. That's great timing. I think you're still here.
Yeah,
The founder of
the
SideQuest
founder.
was, yeah, he was here. He may have just popped out.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that's great. That's an awesome milestone for you guys. That SideQuest experience, what's it going to entail? Because you're offering this to a lot of enterprise clients, right? It's probably not going to
Uh-huh.
look necessarily the same.
Um, is a ride-along experience on scheduled flights, right? So we schedule a flight pretty much every day, whether it's drone racing or virtual tourism. So the first thing is if you get our app from SideQuest, and it's on Vive as well. If you get the app on SideQuest, you can ride along in any of those flights, and we'd love to get your feedback. There are some ways of interacting with the pilots. So some polling, and so you can send emojis, and of course people on Twitch. It's integrated with Twitch, so their chat comes in the cockpit. Um, but the ride-along experience is something we really would push forward. And then, of course, we have limited number of seats. You know, there's only so many pilots that can actually be, be in control at any time. So we do have a sign up on our website if you'd like to pilot.
Yeah, but
Our
what's the website?
platform, it's called vrotors.com.
Oh, vrotors. It's okay. vrotors.com. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
vrotors.com. Yeah. And if anybody has a drone or knows somebody who has a drone, they can also join in. So they can open up their own section to you or to anyone else. So we invite any drone owners to contact us, and we can give them a key to do that.
Ah, that's fascinating. It's been interesting to see. You're not the first company that we've seen that does enterprise software, and yet at the same time they come up with some version of their product to put on SideQuest to increase their exposure and visibility. And I think SideQuest has worked really well for those type of companies in that way. Um, Another thing you touched on that's commonalities with a lot of people we speak to is your usage of Twitch. Can I can totally imagine how Twitch is a really good fit for what you guys are doing. Can you tell me more about how you use Twitch and how it's benefited you?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And the reason we went to Twitch was because we recognized early on that with a physical or any physical device, there's a limited capacity for engaging with users, right? So, there's only and we had investors ask us how to scale, have a million. So, what Twitch affords is that, hey, everybody can really get involved and engage with this, even a single drone, a single flight session, and that's why Twitch was so attractive to us. And so we've built some Twitch extensions. So, as in the audience, as I mentioned earlier, if you're during a race, the drone virtual shields, it's a real drone, but its virtual shields are getting damaged. And the audience, the pilots are really screaming at the audience to repair the shields, front shield, front shield. Um, and because it's the pressure of a race, when you're on a winning run, at the end, everybody feels that accomplishment. And that's what Twitch is really meant for us, is to bring everybody together into the
Yeah.
experience, even though it's a single drone. That's why we did it.
That's really interesting. And one of the things when I first saw VRotors and I first saw you come in and sign up and I checked out your website, I thought, wow, this is really cool, a really cool way of piloting drones. And the kind of the racing use case and plus Twitch and that whole thing fits together. It makes sense and it's really cool. But immediately I was interested to ask you about how this extends to robotics in general.
Hmm. Yeah, so about a year ago, we got involved with a competition called the X Prize Avatar Competition.
Oh yeah.
And this is a human avatar robots, if you will, to run through a series of use cases operated remotely. And so we partnered with Duke University and the University of Illinois. And the way that they actually found us was because they saw our remote drone racing platform. And so they saw that, hey, there's a lot of similarities in operation more generally for their as there is in drone racing. And so that really opened our eyes to, the broader opportunity of tele-robotics. And so they help us be on the forefront of haptics, the opportunity of haptics. We're actually designing a sensor for smell. And we hope to bring those into our more consumer-facing experiences, as those mature. And whether you're controlling a drone or controlling a robotic arm, the technology very much crosses over. But it is early, and we find that drones are the available robot of today and accessible, to everyone. And we find ourselves to be early in terms of other kinds of robotics. But we do, have proposed a number of projects to DoD and some of those NASA, some of the early adopters, to push the frontier, if you will, beyond drones into other kinds of vehicles and robotics.
Will you be
Yeah.
supporting other things than just Quest? For example, the wing.
Currently we support all the Oculus headsets and HTC Vive. And then we're also on PC. And, we're building Unity, so
Right.
right.
Like
So
HP Reverb.
we'll definitely want to support everything that's out there as we build forward.
One of the more interesting things that I hear people talk about when it comes to like sort of this tele-robotic paradigm, so to speak, this manner of operating a machine is when you're operating a machine in this way, you're by definition collecting all the data you may need to teach an artificial intelligence to then repeat that task. Is that something that you're involved with?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a great question. We're involved more in the machine vision side of it, so that the real-time video stream can inform the human operator, so they can better identify what's going on in their scene. In fact, we're working with the Israeli aerospace industry on their next moon landing to help them automate that moon landing. Don't land in the craters and don't land in the rocks. And so we're bringing that into the platform. But to what you're saying, Vrotors is a human on the loop for autonomous systems. So, for the sake of safety, reliability, it's not R2D2 out there. So, we always want currently, a human on the loop, and I think there is some kind of an opportunity for training models based on the human behavior. I like what you're suggesting. We haven't engaged with it yet though, but I think there's probably something there.
Have you guys had the chance to do much proprietary work when it comes to your camera system and stitching those streams and processing that video? And is that part of your proprietary stack?
Yeah, that is, everything starts with open source, but to actually get it to work takes a lot of and to have the video and telemetry and the mixed reality overlays all aligned and moving in sync. That's where a lot of the underlying proprietary effort was made, for sure. And then the other areas, of course, are in just the robustness that you have physical device out there that's 4G connected, mobile data. And then you have pilots around the world, and if any one of those in that system, disconnects, having a robustness that, anybody can then reconnect where they left off, and the drone remains in good control. So a lot of effort's been made into robustness as well, right? So reduced bandwidth situations, and just overall disconnects or even application crashes. This has been an important area. The ability, of course, to make sure the right people are in the right drone is a third area. So the mechanics and the organization. So unlike a traditional video game that we've been used to building, here we have to make sure that we're getting the right people into the right device, and coming up with the right paradigms for the audience to join into that has been something new for us.
That's really interesting. And when you mentioned that challenge of making sure the right person is in the right drone, one of the things that comes to mind, additionally for me, is security, identity, digital reputation. Making sure that these links are not going to be taken over, that they're very reliable. Is that something that you guys have worked on?
Yeah, I mean, you know, so from a consumer level security point of view, we've certainly implemented that. And we've recently started working with Amazon and Verizon related to 5G.
Right.
And so both of them see this platform, Vrotors, as a great use case for and test case for the upcoming 5G
5G.
infrastructure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And part of that is, of course, security. And so we're getting a lot of guidance from them on data stream and device security related to this 5G infrastructure. And I think that's where we're going to we're going to get a lot better through those relationships.
That's awesome. I'll just ask you a couple more questions that I have. The first is, okay, so, you mentioned, I thought it was really interesting that you said, we do tele-robotics, consumer drones just happen to be the robots that are available in the world right now today. I think increasingly that's becoming the case with cars as well, as even kind of your standard Acura and Toyota model are now drive-by-wire and have electronic interfaces and whatnot. Beyond those two, what do you think like the next class of consumer drones or consumer electronics are going to be that fall under that category?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, let me say that very related to drones are other autonomous aerial vehicles, and the two areas are drone delivery and air taxis. And so, there's a lot of similarities with drones, of course. But what we find is that, again, as much as autonomy as there should be, even in drone delivery, we do want to have some human on the loop to make sure, the packages are being dropped in the right place and not on somebody, especially in even the early months and years of the broader implementation out there. Similar with air taxis, even if a pilot is not in the vehicle, as we've started to ideate with Honeywell on these concepts, that as these air taxis are around, you still want to have a human on the loop to make sure that air traffic control, everything's being followed. As much of it is being automated, but still somebody's in the loop in the early years to make sure it's going fine. So, so these aerial vehicles, I think, will continue expanding in their use cases for the next several years into this air mobility scene. Now, more broadly than that, certainly an analogy to cars, but I think the X Prize touches on the home-based types of robotics that will become available. One of the use cases in the X Prize Avatar competition is around home care and elderly care. And I think that there's a lot of efficiency and just safety, with this whole COVID experience in terms of caretakers being able to engage remotely with those in need. So I think that's an interesting area.
In terms of, the drones that you guys are working with and
Hmm.
the hardware roadmap around those products the next 2, 3, 4 years, do you think that the proliferation of LiDAR and active sensors is going to be a bigger driver of change in capabilities, or increasing sophistication in the vision systems?
Yeah. Great question. So there is this trade-off between edge autonomy and cloud autonomy. Sensors, of course, are all driving that. The Absolutely. Um, the drone hardware is becoming more the the basic motors, flight controllers, and so forth. These are all commoditized at this point, and most of the innovators are building around the Mavlink system as well. So a lot of the innovation is really in the sensors and the ability to the autonomy that can come, from that in terms of sensing and obstacle avoidance and the safety that comes from those. So Skydio is an early leader in
Yeah.
that world, right? Using the NVIDIA onboard GPUs that they have.
Yep. Yep.
At the same time, with 5G, there's the opportunity to extend the data connection to the cloud in a way that we never have before. And so, in a way that, Alexa, right? You just talk to Alexa and the voice is in the cloud, right? So, um, a lot of real-time intelligence can take place with the new ultra-low latency opportunities of 5G. So there's an interesting blend of the local autonomy on these vehicles through these sensors and what can be done in the cloud. And that's still being, the balance is still being figured out for sure.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, 5G is going to be a bit tough because I guess out in the open field, you're not going to have that much of a problem. But the millimeter waves are definitely going to be an issue in the cities for deliveries and those kind of venues where the buildings are in the way.
Yeah, that's a great point. And um, we're participating in a 5G experiment, in fact, at the Miramar base in San Diego. And part of that is this dynamic transition that's required from exactly your comment
Yep.
between in flight, between 5G, 4G, and even disconnected states.
Yep.
This is going to be an important capability.
When it comes to these trade-offs and evaluation between the cloud paradigm and the edge compute paradigm, you mentioned um, that there's significant implications there. In terms of edge computing, at the amounts of data and the processing speeds you guys are dealing with, does the onboard compute take up a meaningful amount of the power and thermal budget of the craft, or does it tend to be insignificant based compared to the propulsive power?
Yeah. So to be clear, we're doing less innovation on the drone hardware side, and we're really focused on the software solution. So the application from connected to the drone controller all the way to the VR headset. So we've been less involved with the hardware innovation per your question. But the GPUs that they're able to put on board, are clearly getting better and better. And just looking at the how things progress, we would envision the power requirements to keep decreasing, and that becoming less of an issue. And today, of course, the propulsion is what's dominating the power usage.
Yeah.
Have you guys explored at all kind of fleet paradigm? I know, I've seen things coming out of the U.S. Air Force recently that this sort of next generation fighter system they're working on is it's teleoperated, but you have,
Hmm.
it's teleoperated for one main vehicle, and then you have, 10 or 20 that are, slave vehicles to that vehicle that are just kind of copying it and mirroring it. Have you guys done anything with swarms or fleets?
Yeah, we're certainly dreaming about it. So to be clear, we're a startup company, and you know, a lot of the drones are flying in my backyard. So, but we've been able to go pretty far, just by bootstrapping it, doing our Twitch race streaming, um, and then engaging with some early adopting enterprises. We've only in the last 2 months started to engage with DoD, and that first engagement is with the Navy Marines in Miramar with the 5G.
Hmm.
So we haven't really explored that much. We've certainly read about it, and that would be awesome to get involved in a program of that size and grow out of you know, our 5-year-old Max. That would be great.
Sure, sure. That's great. And just to wrap up the interview, I guess my last question for you would be: is there anything else you want the community to know? Anything we can do to support you or follow you or anything like that?
Yes. So we're just releasing today to SideQuest our application, so you can openly download it and join in. It's a little tricky compared to a normal app because you can only join when we have an actual drone flying, and so we
Mm.
do post a schedule on our website. But if you have the patience to look for that schedule, then we certainly would appreciate your feedback. And if you know any drone owners who might be
Sure.
able to contribute their drones and they can open it privately to you. They don't have to make it
Yeah.
public. The other thing that we have are some camera gimbals that can be remotely controlled. So if you have an interest in that, we have some streams that you can see how that
Cool.
works.
And by the way, just a tip for you that I just learned yesterday is SideQuest just added. You can now specify a time block if you run an ad. And
Oh,
so, like, for instance, for us, we ran an ad specifically during this event. So when people hit our
oh yeah,
website, they see that people are live. So you could do something like that, maybe.
yeah, I will. Thank you. Thanks for mentioning.
Hmm. Are
Awesome.
you
Cool.
looking for collaborators?
Uh, uh, at this point, we're looking for collaboration in the sense of people who either have a drone or know somebody who has a drone, just to get some more flights up in the air and some more opportunities for the community
Okay.
um, to be involved. That's really our biggest requirement, our
Okay.
biggest ask right now.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. That's a fascinating perspective. I'm definitely looking forward to continuing this conversation as you guys progress and evolve. As I imagine many of us in our community will be as well.
Yeah.
You're on the
Thank
tail end
you.
of our event a little bit, but definitely feel free to stick around and chat.
Awesome. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for everybody for listening.
Yeah,
And
Thank you.
great to
Thank you.
join Spatial Ape in the community.
great to have you.
Yeah, super.
Hey, Lawless, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you? That was really
Pretty good.
Yeah, hi
Yeah,
Ray. So, sorry, you mentioned collaboration. So, are you a
yeah,
developer?
it's been
Or-
going great today. We
Yes,
got a bunch
I'm
of
a
interviews. I think we had
developer.
like 150 people come through here.
I've been in actual not in VR space
It's died
personally,
out a bit.
but so I've been in
Yeah, we had
finance. But
Oh,
VR really
Shane, the
does
founder of
fascinate
SideQuest,
me,
in here as
and
well.
yeah,
I did study
great.
computer
Glad we
vision
just
and
talking
so
just
forth
now.
in
He's
school as
sounded
well,
really interesting. So
Nice.
way back when.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
right now
Very
trying
interesting.
to. I'm on the
yeah,
mixed reality
now
headset,
got
so I got a
some
G2,
man.
the
Okay.
new
There you
G2.
go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
playing around in
got my
inserting
man.
objects
So
in my
got to
world and
start
so forth,
seeing
and adding
what's
behaviors
what
and
they are,
colliders and so forth.
and
Yeah.
Got
But
one more.
everything that you talked
Yeah,
about
no
are
kidding. It's about
definitely
time, right? Yeah.
super
Let's
important
do
for
it.
the future. And I
Yeah.
was
Thank you.
thinking that
yeah.
perhaps there could be more of an opportunity